Do an overview of session 1. Today's agenda is to look at the outcomes and other items that start off the session. So our biblical perspective, what we need to read and view, and a note on authors' websites. Also the book edition under reading and viewing. But then we'll get to the assignments, and we have 4 of those, so we want to spend some time exploring and seeing what we have coming up. So first things first, what are we aiming for in this particular session? Well, our outcomes are fourfold. We want to identify the competitors for our work in progress, start to see, who else is doing that kind of stuff and what are they doing out there. We want to select marketing initiatives for our book. We're doing the first stage of marketing. We'll have a couple of stages. We want to draft that marketing plan. Remember, it's just a draft, it's just a start. We're exploring some ideas. And we want to develop the craft of creative writing while simultaneously planning to market that work. So we're doing these things all together. We're getting that idea of, if I had to do all this myself, what could it look like and what would my aims be? And you are the best person for all of that because you're the one who knows what you are sharing and how. So next, in our biblical perspective, we're encouraged to read Deuteronomy 8:17 through 18 and Proverbs 3:9 through 10. And the reflection questions are about, with these ideas in mind of giving God our best, what is one way we can honor God with the wealth of our writing? And what are some ways we can honor and remember the Lord in all of our endeavors? Part of our entire outcomes for the full course, if you look at the overall course objectives, is to say, well, we want to put ourselves out there, right? And we need to put ourselves out there in a really strong, positive light to encourage engagement and content connection. But if we only put ourselves out there as the first one and the only one, maybe we're not giving the image we want or should be giving. So part of what we're doing is we're also saying, if I put myself out there, how can I also put God out there first and in front of me? So those are the questions involved in our biblical perspective. It's a really good step to help us pause and consider. So next are reading and viewing assignments for class. We have several chapters in Loy and Neely's Every Step Counts, chapters 14 through 18. We have Penn's How to Market a Book, looking at part 1 and part 2. We'll have further details in both of those for other sessions. And we have a video here. It's an hour and 17 minutes, so make sure you have some time for that, how to find your market and build your online audience. I also have a quick note about the Loy and Neely book. Here it says 2022. However, some of you will find that you are going to get an edition that says 2023. These are identical books, the 2022 one, 2023. Nothing has changed. There are just some differences there in which date they got. So if you find yourself with the newer date in Slingshot, please know that you have the identical same book. There isn't a difference in page numbers and chapters and all of that, but it is simply that it's now labeled as 2023. So who knows where those kinds of things happen, but it has happened to us. So if you see a difference, 2022 for some of you and 2023 for some of you, please know that you all have the same book. So next key point I wanted to bring up, what about those author websites? We're going to be talking a lot about sharing your marketing and who you are as an author, but you've done a lot of these things in different ways in different classes. So maybe you have a website that you've just decided to do yourself. Maybe you have one that's from another class. Maybe you have a book cover from another class. These are things that we're going to talk about in this class as well. However, I want you to know that I want you to grow what you're doing. So if you have that author website for any reason whatsoever, please know that I want you to use that site as a building block. I don't want you to start from scratch unless you just really want to. I want you to instead, hopefully, if you love what you already have, if you're pleased with where you're starting from, I hope that you will look at our topics as a way to evaluate and refresh that site. Maybe take the opportunity to look at an author or two whom you really love their online engagement and see, what can we do to increase that in your own website? It's a great chance to ask some questions. So not that I know the exact answer right away, but I will help you find it. If there are especially website elements that you love that you're seeing out there, let's all talk about it and see if we can recreate those. So our assignments this week, and we have a break after session 1 if you are in the fall 23 section. We have Getting to Know You, our discussion thread, and our second discussion thread. You know how the first week is. We always have 2. Who are you competing against? And then we have our 2 submitted assignments. So let's go dive in and see what's out there. First, start getting to know you. As you probably already know, a lot of your fellow classmates, I love getting to know all of you out here. Please know that we have that initial start, right, of who we are and what we wanted to share about ourselves. So remember, you can reuse things like that. But also, we are asking questions specific to our course. So, who is one author you follow on social media and why, and explaining our engagement with their platform? Are there any authors you enjoy reading who don't have these clear footprints? And how does that affect your engagement? And finally, what are your thoughts about an author's image? And that's definitely something we're going to talk about more today. Like, what is that image? How should we market ourselves as people? What does that look like? As I explored this, I realized that I don't use my social media as a way to engage with authors. I actually engage a lot with bulldogs as my bulldog babies as well. They have a much bigger social media footprint than I do. But I also engage a lot with knitters. And so I found myself looking at these questions and thinking about a knitter I absolutely love and enjoy. And so I think I want to encourage you to expand it. Maybe you aren't following authors specifically. Hopefully you are. But at the same time, if you're not, if that's not a space you like to engage with them on, then don't hesitate to just share who you follow and how that person and their footprint sort of impacts you. Because I think it's really, really helpful to say, what is that person doing? As I share in my welcome video, what Gigi does is absolutely amazing to me, and she's very consistent with her marketing and all of those items, and it's just really wonderful because I see all of these really positive and engaging things with her, and that's what I would hope to do and share with others. So those are good steps to take. Next, who are you competing against? Oh my goodness. It's not really against. I like to think of it as, we are all out there and we all have something to share and to sell. And how do we get people to see it and to find it? So part of what we do is we say, well, who am I like? Like, who else would be on that shelf beside me with my book in the library? Which is a great question because depending on how the librarian sees that particular type of work, there are often multiple places a work actually fits. And so that's always a really interesting angle to it. But we want to know, like, who else is out there doing what we do? Are they writing our particular subgenre? Would we hope that people who read them would also read us? Would we love that? Would we love to be on if we were at some sort of event and we were on a panel with other authors who wrote like we do, who would we love to share that panel with? Who would just be so exciting for us? So our questions are things like, who or what are you competing against in the industry? It could be authors, the subgenres of literature, even yourself. What could you do to beat or stand out against that competition? How could you be seen and heard? What steps could you take to keep from being weighed down by worrying about all of that? Because this is a big part of it. Like, part of it is saying, who else is in that room with me? But also, how do I feel excited by that rather than overwhelmed? For instance, I got to meet an actor at an event, and I wasn't like a super fan of this particular actor, but I felt like I knew that person because I'd been binge watching a show that he'd had for like 10 years. And so I had just watched episode after episode. And this person had been in my family room with me and my family for days upon days of weeks. And meeting him, it felt really strange because I felt like I know him. But of course I didn't, did I? I wasn't meeting him. I was thinking of that character he had played. And so we have all these different, like, sort of perceptions of who we're meeting and what they're like and all of this kind of stuff. And we want to start to delve into that. It's psychological in a sense of what are our expectations? What are we thinking about? How are we feeling about these people? What would that be like in these spaces? And that's what we're sharing. And we are connecting with each other so that we all feel more confident and stronger about these spaces. So next, I wanted to share about that idea. I have a little bit that I shared in the course overview, but here I wanted to go into a little bit more depth. We're talking about, authors and who they are and our expectation of what they'll be like if we meet them and things like that. But not every author shares their full self, and even when we do try to share our full selves, that doesn't always work, does it? People get to know pieces of us. My friends who know me as a knitter, my friends who know me as an instructor, my friends who know me as a baker or as an aunt. There's all these different positions and places in life. So let's look at a couple. So there are some authors who use pseudonyms. You may have heard of Lemony Snicket. It's the pen name of Daniel Handler, and he went quite a few years of keeping that name quiet. So why would someone want to do that? Why would he want to be known only by this fun, silly name? How did that help marketing those books? How did that help with the books themselves? This suspense of not knowing the actual person behind it. How does that sort of lessen the suspense and excitement by knowing who he is now? Another, Elena Ferrante, she was supposedly a journalist has said that it's her behind these great stories. And it's a really interesting case of a person saying, like, no, that's not me, even though you are outing me, as it were. But she very much, when you think about her life versus who the the books are, she's separating herself. She's saying these books are not me as a person; they are a creative thing. And so she doesn't want people to look at them and connect her life to those stories. She instead wants the works to stand on their own. And it's a really interesting point to make. Like, how much do you want your work to be connected specifically to you? And there are reasons for and against that, and they're often quite personal. Some authors really struggle with their creations. I think this happens to musicians as well. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wanted to write serious histories, but those didn't and don't make much money. And he wrote some Sherlock just to get some money, and they made a lot of money, and his mother demanded that he keep writing them because they needed a living. And it was very hard for him because he didn't want to write Sherlock stories, and he didn't want that to be what he was known for. And even now, that's who we talk about when we think of him. And yet that was just sort of a little something he did on the side, but he very much wanted to do something else. And that's something to think about. Our creation sort of taking over, and the expectations people will have of us based on those. It could be a very positive thing. What if he had loved Sherlock? It still would define him, and that could feel a little strange. Some authors are more complicated. I thought of an imaginary one. We have Higgins as Robin Masters in Magnum PI. Why do people hide their work? Why might we want to sort of have a pseudonym or have that other name and have our life to live outside of it? Think about who you want to present yourself as, how much of yourself you want to share. There is no right or wrong answer. That's very, very open. I've met some of you who talk about your pseudonyms, and I think that's really important. Like, you've thought about that. You've considered what you want to share out there. And I think that's an incredibly important discussion to have. You don't have to share those kinds of things with all of us, but share your ideas and what you're thinking. You don't have to tell us the exact names if you don't want to. So, creating some writing. Even as you learn about marketing, you can't forget your first job, of course, is a writer. So we want to write. Jerry Jenkins suggests that you spend the vast majority of your time writing and effectively doing that, which is really, really important. So even though this course is going to be quite a bit of administrative work, we're looking at the authors. How do we market ourselves? How do we want to do websites? What do book launches look like? We still want to do some creativity. So for this assignment, we're going to do a flash fiction piece or nonfiction. It's just a flash piece. And it's designed not just to be short, but concise and quick and sort of sum up things. So 500 to 1,000 words. Oh my goodness. So 2 to 3 pages. And our theme is write your creative piece on the theme of reputation. So here's some specifics, some possibilities. When we give a question like that, when we give a statement like write on the theme of reputation, you can tackle that any which way you want. For some of you, that's perfect. You rub your hands together and you say, yes, I'm ready to go. But for others, you say, oh goodness, I don't even know where to start. It's just different mindsets, different ways that we approach it. I tend to be the I don't know where to start person. So here under the submission was also some ideas to inspire us. Maybe writing a story about a person whose reputation was ruined by a single act or possibly made by a single act. A story about someone who's trying to change their reputation. Write about the time you learned of your own reputation. I always find that super interesting. When I first started teaching, I was the iron fist, which doesn't make any sense at all. But those are high schoolers. You never know what high schoolers are thinking. I don't know what I was thinking at that age either. So learning those kinds of things could be really informative and interesting. Or write a piece that explains or teaches the value of reputation. So like self-help or devotional, that kind of thing. There are lots of potentials here. These are just some ideas. If there's something else entirely that inspires you, go for it. So finally, we're starting that marketing plan. This is part one. Remember, we are drafting this. A draft is something we are editing. A draft is ideas, it's concepts. We're going to download the marketing plan template, and then we're going to fill out about half of it. I have some screenshots here showing, some of the start parts of it. But remember, when you get to the yellow part, stop there for session 1, and then we will go back to it in session 5. So remember, it's just the start. You're getting some ideas out there. You're starting to think about what it could look like. So maybe you want to focus on the piece you're writing today. Maybe it's something you're already working on. Just choose a piece that you want to keep in mind for this project so that you have a focus for what the book launch would be like, for what the marketing plan would look like. So make sure you're choosing that idea now, and then we will follow through with it. And then look at those template ideas to complete it. So complete each section as directed. You don't have to have all of the pieces right now. We're just starting the process. Fill in each section by deleting that placeholder and typing in your info. Some sections are really straightforward and need a very short response, and others need more of a paragraph or a little bit more description. Once you have it, save it and upload it to share with me. So as you can see here, it's about 1.5 pages, and that's all we want today. And some of it, as you can see close up, it's your name or your website. Those are quick little blurbs to add, but that's it. So that's what we want to share and start at. So as you go through, please don't hesitate to ask questions and explore, and I can't wait to hear and read what you are working on and what you're excited to explore.